I believe I'm the only person here tonight who's ever been chopped up and mailed to the FBI. Is that wrong? That gruesome tale takes place during a 2-year period of my life where I vainly hoped that I could become an actor in Chicago. But in order to tell that story, I need to go back a little farther in my past and start you off when I was 5 years old. My grandmother thought that I was the cutest thing she'd ever seen. I had these deep blue eyes and these long eyelashes, and she was like, "You are the most adorable child ever." And this was not some subjective grandma. This was an objective preschool teacher who had seen thousands of children in her lifetime. So she somehow had finagled to get me an audition for a TV show for when I was visiting her in Los Angeles. And as she was driving me to Burbank for that audition, the radiator in her car broke. And we never made it to the audition. And for the rest of my childhood, teen years, adulthood, I always kind of look back and think, man, if I had been a child star, I would have done it different from the Different Strokes kids. I would have made it. I wouldn't have gone to drugs and, all that other stuff. I would have been really cool, but then I could have stopped and retired on the beach for the rest of my life at the age of 22. But instead, I'm working. So when my wife graduated from her second master's degree, and we were kind of frustrated with the DC area, we were like, we're getting out of here. I'm going to go pursue my passion of trying to become an actor. And I'm going to do that by taking improv classes in Chicago and becoming an extra. And I didn't do this just out of the top of my mind. I'm a huge fan of the movie Swingers. And Jon Favreau took classes at I.O. Theater in Second City. So I was like, okay, I'll go take classes there. And Vince Vaughn was an extra, and that's how he got his career started. So I'm like, if I could combine Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn into one, that's me. Not everybody else saw it that way. So when we were in Chicago, I immediately signed up to be an extra. And the first call I get was for a movie called Rory's First Kiss. Now, my wife and I had been watching Gilmore Girls for years before that, and I was like, okay, that Rory girl's kind of cute. If they're making a Gilmore Girls movie, sure, why not? I'll be in it. But then I went online and looked it up, and Rory's First Kiss was a fake title. Because Rory is Christopher Nolan's daughter. And Christopher Nolan was the guy who directed the movie Batman. And this movie was Batman the Dark Knight. I was going to get to be in Batman, my very first movie. I was so excited. And when I got on set, it was a 3-night shoot, which meant from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3 nights in a row. Everybody was utterly exhausted, but that didn't matter because I got to see Christian Bale and Maggie Gyllenhaal and Senator Patrick Leahy, with whom I got to talk to about Senate judiciary issues, and Keith Ledger. And when I got home and my wife asked who, I said, Keith Ledger. And she's like, who? I said, Keith Ledger. And she's like, you mean Heath Ledger? I'm like, oh, is that his name? She says, yes. The second movie I got to do, though, was really kind of cool because it typecasted me into what will become my memorable lifetime experience. I got to play an FBI agent in the Justin Vanderbeek, James Vanderbeek hot thriller Formosa Betrayed. I've never heard of it since that day either. But I got an FBI badge and I got a gun. And I was like, this is really cool, and I probably should have taken that FBI job in 2005 when it was offered to me. But instead, I'm in this awesome movie with James Vanderbeek. That was really a fun experience because they didn't have a lot of real flash in the movie, but the sponsors of the movie were there that day, and so what they wanted to do was show the sponsors that, this is a really cool set, and so they set up this massive buffet with steak and lobsters and crab and everything. It was the best fed I've ever been on a movie set. So I really enjoyed that. And then the third film I got to be in was just this really horrible horror movie that the most memorable aspect of it was that it was taking place on a winter day in Chicago, but the scene called for a spring day in Chicago, which meant nobody got to wear a jacket. I vowed to myself after that movie that I would really tamp down my extra experiences and really be very discerning about the roles I got to play. But at the same time, I had been contracting out with a company in the DC area. My contracts were drying up, and I needed to start looking for a day job. So I didn't have as much time to be an extra. I couldn't stay out as late to go to all the improv classes at night and all the shows and everything. And so my improv and acting career were kind of drying up. But then I received the call. And the call was to be in the Johnny Depp movie Public Enemies. And anyone who knows me knows that I am a huge fan of the 1930s and 40s. I love the clothing style. I love the hair. I love the political dynamics. I love the clothes that the women wore, really. And I really, really love gangsters. I am fascinated by gangsters. And John Dillinger is one of the gangsters who most fascinates me. So I was like, yes, this is awesome. This scene, though, was another 24-hour shoot. And when we all arrived in the morning, we were all basically in bathrobes and had our hair done, and what hair I had at the time, done. And we were waiting because they had given us all this attire to wear of this just really cool 1930s garb. And the woman who showed up with our group had told everybody in the group that it was her birthday that day. And she was celebrating her birthday by being on this set with the hope that she could get close to Johnny Depp. So as we go through the day, we're in a bar scene at a dance club. And that woman turns out to be the woman that is chosen to be on my arm for the entire experience. Now, I'm looking really dapper in my pinstripe suit, greased back, slick back, early 1930s hair. She's got this silk form-fitting dress on, or vamp hairstyle, and we're an awesome-looking couple, as everybody else in the room is as well. And Johnny Depp and Marion Cotillard are coming through there and having their scene, and we're all just kind of having fun in the background, dancing and walking through. And that takes about 17 hours to do. After which they put us all in an auditorium as they set up for a street scene, a nighttime scene. And we're sitting in the auditorium, we're exhausted. Marion Cotillard just finished a dancing rendition of I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie. And Johnny Depp decides to come out and hang out with the extras. And as he's walking by, I yell out, "Hey Johnny, it's this girl's birthday and she says that her wish is for you to give her a hug." Johnny Depp looks at me and is just like, oh, Jesus. She, though, is ecstatic. She's like, oh my God! And Johnny's like, yeah, fine. He puts up his arms. She comes barreling down at him, jumps up, just like almost knocks him over, hugs him. He's hugging her. And, I look at Johnny Depp after this hug, and I'm like, this guy's never going to talk to me again. But then again, I didn't feel so bad, because he never talked to me before that. So I didn't lose anything there. But this woman, I made her day, her week, her month, her birth year. Honestly, that was the greatest experience of her life. And I felt so good about myself for having gotten her that, because it didn't look like she was going to do it for herself. So then when I got home, I was telling my wife, hey, I did this really cool thing. And she's like, oh, what'd you do? Did you see anybody famous? I'm like, I think there was this French actress, and, yeah, Johnny Depp was there. And she's like, well, then what did you do? And I said, well, it was this girl's birthday, and I got her to have a hug from Johnny Depp. Now, my wife is usually a very pragmatic and understanding woman. But from what I gathered of that particular event, is that second only to having an affair, having another woman get hugged by Johnny Depp and being the person who created that opportunity for this other woman is a very, very bad thing. So I'm still living that down. My final call to be an actor extra in Chicago was for the Patrick Swayze gritty crime drama, The Beast. And they asked me to show up with a suit. So I did. And they sit me down in front of an American flag, and they take my picture. And that was it. And I was like, all right, sure, fine. My wife and I were already kind of figuring that we'd be moving back to the DC area. I was on unemployment at the time. So when they offered to pay me, I'm like, I don't think I could take that because that would sacrifice my unemployment. So I never even got paid for this experience. But a couple months later, we're back in the DC area. We had completely forgotten about that role. But then a friend of mine sends me an email and says, did I just see you last night on The Beast? I was like, oh, yeah, you probably did. And she sent me the link of the show so that we could watch it. And my wife and I sat down and watched it. And for 15 seconds, my picture was shown on television. And it wasn't just a silent, hey, let's just show a picture of Jeremy. It was, they were talking, Patrick Swayze included, about this FBI agent who had gone undercover with the mob, had been found out, had been killed, chopped up, and mailed back to the FBI. And I was like, that is so cool! I got to be in the mob, I got to be in the FBI, and I got to go illegally through the US Postal Service. Awesome! What more could anybody want in their 15 seconds of fame? And so looking back on that, my wife looked, she saw it and she's like, you finally know the name of somebody who's been on TV. It was me. And I feel like, yeah, wow, I almost got close. I was almost an actor. And I figure, okay, now I'm starting to go even more bald. I'm gaining some more weight. And I'm thinking that Paul Giamatti has gotten some really good roles out of life. And I could probably do the same thing if I still try again. So maybe one day I'll try to go back and try some more. Thanks.